Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rem and Sam podcast. We've got some exciting news to announce. We're just going to get right into it. Start with the big news. There's going to be some changes, I think is the right way to put it, to the Rem and Sam podcast. Some upgrades are on the way. Make no mistake, we're adding some things to our game, I think is the best way to put it. It's like, being in the off season in the summer, guys are in the gym right now, working on their games, working on their shots, adding new stuff, working on... Well, nobody's in the NBA right now is working on post-ups, obviously. But we get there all in the gym jacking up threes. So the Rem and Sam podcast, we want to make sure that we're doing the same. It's not just the NBA guys. That's their profession. That's just their way that they get to add things to their game. But, we got to keep doing the same thing here. We want to be adding things to our game. We always want to be continuing to upgrade and bring new types of stuff to you guys. So, like I said, we've got some big announcements, some things that we're going to try to do a little bit differently for the upcoming sports season, as the NFL season is. I think this is the last week of preseason, and then we get a week off and then right into the regular season. And then the NBA, of course, will be right around the corner. After that, college football will be in the mix, college basketball. The fall, the sports season is going to definitely pick up, of course. And we just, during the NBA playoffs last year and then this year during the Olympics, I know we haven't necessarily been doing the podcast and the shows live per se, but, me and Sam were recording these a lot of times at night. There's, like we're saying, during the sports season, there's games on anyways. We do most of our recordings on Friday nights. So during the NBA season, that's probably the biggest NBA night of the season, or the NBA night of the week in terms of the biggest matchups. And we're just going to be throwing games on in the background anyways. A lot of times we're just watching those games. And I don't know, the vibe of that has always just been super fun. And we were like, well, how do we bring that? How do we do that? How do we just watch games more on the pod is basically what we've been trying to figure out. So we've been kind of thinking about committing to that idea once, like I'm saying, the NFL season and the NBA season gets underway. And we want to start doing like some live watch party type stuff to go along with these games. So like I'm saying, during the NBA season, it would make a ton of sense to go live during the games. Like we're saying, we got them on in the background and just kind of do a watch party type thing anyways. But we were saying, well, why not just expand that into the NFL season as well, too? And we've been doing these midweek pods. We've been recording on Tuesday nights. I think we're going to be getting NFL games on Tuesday nights at some point in the future. I know where the NBA national TV schedule is really going to increase. Of course, like, me and Sam, League Pass, the cough streaming services, you find a way to watch these games every night anyways. But in terms of the national TV presence, I know the NBA is going to step it up with the new TV contract in the mix. But I think for the NFL season, what we're going to start doing is, instead of doing the Tuesday show and then doing a Wednesday drop, we're going to start going live during the Monday night games. And then, of course, that'll be up Monday night, Tuesday night, if anybody wants to, do the re-listen to that. And then for Thursday night as well, too, I was saying we might as well just go live for the Thursday night game, potentially, instead of the Friday pod. We're still working out the details for that as well, too. But we're definitely going to be live watching the Monday night and the Thursday night games for the NFL season. And then I think once the NBA season starts up, too, we may even take it a step further. Maybe we won't go too many announcements right off the top. We'll save some stuff. We'll tease some stuff out for some later episodes. But like I say, maybe once the NBA season gets into effect, we'll even do the watch party thing a little bit more. But definitely stay tuned. Like I'm saying, follow the Rem and Sam feeds at Rem and Sam, at Rem and Sam Podcast. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're not going to be live on all those platforms. Not all those platforms do live, of course. But we're going to be live on YouTube during some of the NFL games this year. Really, it's just when the Manning Cast thing started, it was like, oh man, that's just the best job in sports. And one of the reasons that I know Peyton Manning didn't want to do the in the booth stuff is because there is like, the travel element to that, and the, being on the road away from home is not something that he necessarily wanted to do. So with the Manning casting, he's been able to hack this, work from home, but also watch the games type setup. And I know, it's not like he just got the job too. He earned it. He's, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And, you got to work to get to that level, and then also be have the personality stuff too, to be a desired media personality once you retire. But just doing that, there was something about that was, I think, a little bit better than what is, the typical podcast thing of just recording it and putting it out afterwards. And you see with some of the other shows as well too, like with what Nightcap has been doing and with what Kill Tony has been doing, just some of the live stuff seems to be a pretty cool thing going around right now. So I think we're definitely gonna try, we're definitely gonna try to get in on it and add our, thing, our hopefully unique thing to the field here. But like I said, stay tuned, because we're gonna be doing the watch party thing, and I think starting this Friday, there's going to be some NFL preseason games that are going to be in the background, obviously, too. But make no mistake, there's going to be some high-level Frisbee action, some intense playoff Ultimate Frisbee Association. Let's see. I think it's the semis. Sam was saying on Saturday that this coming weekend is the championship weekend. So it's going to be the semis on one day, and then I think the finals on another day. And of course, I'm not going to remember what the teams are that are in this off the top. But yeah, we've got a semifinal matchup versus, the Wind Chill and the DC Breeze is game one. And then game two is the Carolina Flyers versus the Seattle Cascades. Of course, we're going to be locked in on that Wind Chill DC Breeze matchup. I mean, assuming UFA figures out their whatever's going on with the Watch UFA TV thing, UFA, lock it in before the semis, because some of us out here are actually trying to watch what's going on with the league. But like I said, there's also going to be some preseason stuff too. So we're just going to try to go live Friday night and record it and just, do the episode live and kind of just do a test run on the whole format and see how the whole thing goes. But it'll be just, like I said, a little bit of a different vibe too, geared more toward the games going on in the background, which I think is a different thing than necessarily what's been going on in the past. And I make no mistake, like, I think I was going to say old school podcasting. Yeah, podcasting is a new thing, so hard to say old school for a new format. But, just the way it's been going so far, it's super fun to do. But like I said, with some of the new shows and the way it's being pushed forward right now, the game's evolving. So it's like we were saying with the NBA, if the league starts to pivot to the space and the 3 and Ds, and now it's like, okay, we know that there's these certain aspects of the game on the court that you've really got to emphasize now that are more important, and everybody's just going to really focus in on trying to get their 3-point shooting as good as possible. And that's gonna, like we're saying, that's going to be the same with every profession. So we want to make sure that we're not doing post-ups on the Rem and Sam pod when everybody else is shooting threes. Even though sometimes, of course, if you're, if you're Embiid or whatever, or Jokic, and it makes sense, there's Mitch. I mean, we get it, of course, watching basketball. But if the game is going in a certain direction, you want to make sure you're following that. And I think that this is where it needs to be headed. So, like I said, some big, exciting stuff in the works on the Rem and Sam pod. Stay tuned. We're always trying to be on our toes. Look, is cutting edge too far? I don't want to throw that label around for us. If it gets thrown around online about us, then I don't think we're going to deny it. But we're at Rem and Sam podcast, at Rem and Sam podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, all the different platforms. If you just want to stay locked in. And we're going to still try to say, like, we get it. It's, on all these platforms too. still be like, yeah, we want it to be good for the people that, shout out to everybody that listens on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're super thankful for our audio listeners, and we want to make it a good show for them too. But we also want to make sure with the video stuff and, like I said, with the live stuff that we're bringing you guys the content that it seems like, everybody seems to be wanting right now, and this is where it's going. So hopefully we're able to, like I said, provide the content that you guys want. But starting this Friday, we're going to be doing it with the UFA semifinals. The wind chill and the breeze and the Flyers are taking on the Cascade. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to live watch our guy Jeff Babbitt this weekend. He got knocked out last weekend, but we do like watching the wind chill. For those of you that haven't watched UFA, which might be a few of you, wouldn't be surprised. I would say the wind chill kind of like the Tennessee college offense from a couple years ago with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. Just that super vertical. Who was the other receiver there? Was that Cedric Tillman? Am I getting that right? Xavier Tillman is the Celtics. I think Cedric Tillman, former Tennessee receiver, now in the Cleveland Browns. But, just all the deep threat, deep shot stuff. There was another running back, too. I probably should know who the running back was on that team. Of course, Kamara was a handful of seasons before that. There wouldn't have been overlap between that offense in his run there. But the vertical threat for the wind chill, if you like entertaining Frisbee, the wind chill are going to be where it's at. Let's see if we can pull up the Hendon Hooker Tennessee team here real quick, because make no mistake, I mean, he was, SEC Offensive Player in the Year, 27 touchdowns to 2 picks, just sitting on the Detroit Lions bench right now behind Jared Goff, waiting his turn. Goff just got paid, so it might be a minute. But shout out to our Lions friend, the Champ Quinn. I know he's got a little bit of Hendon Hooker stock. He wasn't necessarily against the pick when it happened. Not that he had anything against Goff. He didn't mind just having the security, but he was also like, hey, kind of an interesting upside shot. Oh, yeah, Jalen Wright was on that team the last year that Hendon Hooker was there. His senior year was the running back. And I believe Jalen Wright just got drafted to the Dolphins this past year. Do we have a little bit of Jalen Wright stock for fantasy, for real life? I think so. I do know A-Chain is there, but we saw the health thing with him last season, and I wouldn't necessarily put money on him having a super healthy career. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Obviously, we wish him the best. I'm just saying for Miami to have insurance and a super talented running back like Jalen Wright, I think is a good thing. And just, he's also, I don't know if A-Chan's going to be the type of guy that's going to be an every down back in Miami. I think you'd want to just, and the running back, if the live thing is trendy for pods right now, the running back committee thing is trendy in the NFL. We know that too. So you're just going to want to have some depth at that spot. But I could see Jalen Wright getting actually some couple carries. I mean, same with Mostert. Mostert doesn't necessarily have like the cleanest bill of health for his career either. Do they have another? I mean, Miami's always stacked with running backs, but between those two guys' track records, I could just see Jalen Wright breaking on the field that way. But, I think I could also see him being good enough to just earn some minutes in his own right. They've also on the roster got 4 running backs, Mostert, right? Oh, yeah, Jeff Wilson from the Dolphins. Anthony McFarland. I mean, we still got a little Anthony McFarland stock as well, too. I'm not going to lie. We've always liked him a little bit. Of course, Ingold, the fullback. Just a stacked backfield for Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. Makes sense with the system that he came out of, pause, and the stuff that he wants to run over there in Miami. But yeah, that's kind of what we're thinking about cooking up for the Rem and Sam pod. So the main thing is just a little bit of a different schedule as well too with some of the recordings. Like I said, not necessarily a Tuesday to Wednesday. Might be like a Monday to Tuesday, a Thursday to Friday, Friday to Saturday sort of ordeal. We'll just see. So stay tuned. It's going to be exciting. We've also got some new behind the scenes tech that we're working with right now. So make no mistake, there's going to be some pauses in this one. There's going to be some pauses for sure, but there's also going to be some cuts as well too, as we try to just make sure that everything is running smoothly in the background as we get some of this new tech figured out as we get ready to go live, kind of like right now. And we're back. Things are running smoothly in the background, of course. We're like the Doc Brown of podcasters. We've just got a mad contraption of apps running in the background. We've got to dart off and check every once in a while. It's just what it is. We've got to cook this, we got to really throw things together to try to cook this up, but we get it to work. I know it's not probably we need an actual IT. What is IT actually doing in the booth over there? They got to step in and help us figure out how to get this running more efficiently. But I think we're going to be able to pull off a lot. We're switching around right now on accident, switching scenes. But I think we're going to be able to try to limp through a live show, like I said, on Friday night. But I also forgot to mention we've got WNBA going on in the background right now, too. Of course, we're going to be doing WNBA watch parties, too. Don't cancel me before we get started. But we promise, let's see what's on the schedule here for next Tuesday when we record. We'll do a live WNBA watch along, and we'll do some kind of like, I don't know, fantasy football. We'll come up with something else to kind of talk through as we watch the game. But here, let's see if we can pull up the schedule for this upcoming Tuesday. We're going to have Aces Wings. So we've got Liberty Wings on right now in the background. The Wings just getting a gauntlet of the it's just the Tuesday. Let's just put a powerhouse team up against the Wings at the 6-20 Wings and watch how that goes. But Arike Gumbawale, of course, they're hanging in there against the Liberty. They're not going to go away, but definitely not going to bet on the Wings to. Well, I shouldn't speak too early. Let's see what the odds are next week, and we'll get back to you on the watch party. Maybe we'll throw down a couple of live bets as we watch the game. I don't know. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it on our old friends over at DRF Sportsbook anymore. RIP our old pals. But shout out to BETSTAMP. Shout out to Pura Vida. A couple of good, strong corporations over there just chugging along, doing their thing. Shout out to those guys. Links in the bio. And maybe we should actually try to mention them a couple more times, so we don't have to say RIP Pura Vida like we did at DRF Sportsbook. It was a good run, make no mistake. And the DRF Sportsbook people will be back. I'm sure that their corporate greed will get the better of them, and they'll come up with another business. But in the meantime, we'll have to try to figure out who. Make no mistake, people. There's a third sponsorship spot open on the on the Rem and Sam podcast now. If somebody wants it. Pura Vida and BETSTAMP got the first two in no particular order. We love both of our, we love all of our sponsors the same. But if you guys, we got a third spot open. If somebody wants to take it, we got a fourth one too. But make no mistake, the third one is wide open. We've got the cap space. We're the 76ers right now in free agency, just courting all the free agents who wants to play in our max cap spot in that number 3 sponsorship role. We'll see what happens. But yeah, WNBA, NBA, NFL, it's all in the mix. If there's any other sports that I'm leaving out, make no mistake, slide in the DMs and we'll try to cook up a watch party. Can we do like a table tennis watch party at some point? I don't know. Peacock had all these random sports on for the Olympics. Who knows if they're streaming on these other sports just during the off season? Can we get like a beach volleyball watch party? That one might be we might actually have to write that down as an idea. But IT's idea for today was, with the NFL season, like we're saying, quickly approaching. I know we might do some NFL stuff while we watch the UFA games. And, there's going to be some preseason on too. And we've got a couple more weeks here before the NFL season actually gets kicked off. But I feel like we're far enough away where we could throw out some crazy takes and maybe not necessarily be fully responsible for them. We're still in crazy takes or summer takes are still acceptable at this point in the preseason. I feel like next week, really, we kind of have to start taking ourselves seriously when we're thinking about the NFL. But for this week, anyways, I feel like we can go a little wild with it. Pause. But for today, we've got some might delete later NFL takes. Shout out to our guy J. Cole. Should we say one of the underrated albums of the year? Maybe one of the, I don't know, poorly timed albums. You know, a lot of factors go into how an album is received. You know, some of the songs have definitely made their way into our rotation. Trade the Truth, Hunting Wabbits is a classic, instant classic. But a 7-minute drill, unfortunately, he might delete later. And we'll see which one of these takes becomes the 7-minute drill of our NFL takes, or maybe we just the whole album, and just to get a might delete later. We've got some wild takes in here, but like I said, some might delete later takes for the NFL season. At this point, we can get a little crazy, and nobody will remember once the NFL season actually rolls around. It won't actually matter. But the first might delete later take for the NFL season. Actually, do we go like hot ones where we go least spicy to most spicy? Because I feel like this one might be the most spiciest. But, well, let's just start with it anyways. I think the New York Jets are going to be the last unbeaten team in the NFL. Now, I think this is like 13 to 14 to 1 that you can bet right now. But if you look at strength of schedule, per the Vegas win totals for this upcoming season. So shout out Sharp Football Analysis. This is the way that they like to kind of calculate their strength of schedule, at least, on the article that I had it pulled up, because a lot of times too, you can calculate it based on the opponent's win percentage based on last season. But, to kind of get a little bit of a better perspective on what we're thinking for, at least for this upcoming season, maybe with some draft stuff, some free agency stuff, of course, with how the rosters change. That's the way that they like to look at it and think of a better way to calculate that stat. But right now, the Jets have the fourth easiest one based on those Vegas win totals for this upcoming season. The 1 through 5, you've got, starting with the easiest, Atlanta, the Los Angeles Chargers, Chicago Bears, New York Jets, and then the New Orleans Saints. So, Atlanta might have had a better August than they had when free agency actually happened in the NFL. Like, what did they get Judon? And they just signed Justin Simmons as well, too, getting him from when the Broncos released him. So, adding those couple of guys to their defense with Jesse Bates already being there and AJ Terrell, hopefully kind of, I guess, he played well last season too, but kind of getting back into that, is he an all-pro level guy as well too? There's even more young talented people on that defense. So it's like, okay, if Kirk Cousins is actually able to make the offense sustainable, unbeaten for the last unbeaten team seems like a little bit of a reach for Atlanta. Now, looking at their first couple of games, they've got Pittsburgh to start week 1, Philly week 2, and then KC week 3. So they're definitely not going to go 0-3 through that stretch. So they're probably going to be out on this bet. And I don't think they necessarily have great odds either. The Chargers are another interesting one. I think they're like 22 to 1-ish versus, like I said, the Jets were 13, 14 to 1, somewhere in that range. So a little bit longer odds for the Chargers, and their strength of schedule is in a similar spot. Maybe you like that bet a little bit more. It does make sense a little bit, but they've also got KC in the first couple weeks as well too. They go Raiders, Panthers, Steelers, so that could be 0-3, but then KC in week 4. So, if you're going to play the Chiefs that early, I'm probably not going to bet you to beat the last unbeaten team in the league. Now, the Jets, I could be completely wrong on this after week 1. Like we're saying, this is why this might be a might delete later, because they play the Niners in week 1. But the Niners right now, if I'm not saying like I'm going to be down on the Niners for the whole year. The Niners and Shanahan have been, of course, the mistress team for the last couple of years. Well, the Colts have been looking for their franchise quarterback, but I know there's been some of the Purdy stuff in the camp, and they haven't really, the Ayuk thing they haven't necessarily figured out. There's been some injuries as well, too. So maybe they're just, even like I'm saying, if you're not down on San Francisco for the whole season, maybe they have a little bit of a slow start. And the New York defense week 1 could definitely be a tough challenge for Purdy, who had some camp struggles, like we're hearing from some reports anyways, or at least like we're seeing on the headlines on the TV at the, station at the bar at work. But after the Niners week 1, I mean, this is where it really gets interesting for the Jets, where they go Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota, then they got Buffalo and Pittsburgh back to back, and then New England, and then they're at Houston. I believe this is week 9. I just wrote down the teams. I didn't write the week number, but I believe week 9 they're playing the Texans. So Stroud, we know. Well, I guess we haven't really said yet, but yeah, we have a lot of Texan stock going into this season. Not too much, of course, because they're an AFC South rival, but they are going to be, a scary team for Sam's Chiefs this year. So with them in the path, I would say, just from a betting standpoint, I would not, bet a team with Houston in the path like that early. But week 9, I was going back and looking through some of the last years with the last unbeaten teams. And last year, I believe the last unbeaten teams both got beaten in week 5. It was the Niners and the Eagles, I believe. Actually, here, let's just double check. Let's look it up quick. But if you go back and look at the last couple of years before that, it's always somewhere in like the 6 to 8 range. Just a few more weeks in that. And, you get like a shortened run for last unbeaten team every few years like that. But it seems like typically it's in the 8, like 7 or 8 for a team can jump out to a winless start. And, you can even get a team like the Steelers going back to that one year where they won 12 games in a row to start the season. Then lost their last 4 and really fell apart as things ended. But you've got the Eagles going, 5-0, and the Niners going 5-0 both last year. And then the Eagles lost to the Jets, and the Niners lost to the Browns in that game. But in 22, the Eagles also started 8-0. In 2021, the Cardinals started 7-0. In 2020, the Steelers, we're going last unbeaten team. 11-0 was their start. 8-0 in 2019, 8-0, and then 5-0 in 16 and 17, and then back to the 14-0 Carolina Panthers in 2015. So, you can go a good half a season with the team managing to not lose a game. And it's not even like we're saying, I mean, the Eagles last couple of years, the Niners in there going to Super Bowls, like it's, most likely some of the good teams, but with the Cardinals and the Steelers, you can also get a team that can be a playoff team, but maybe not in your tier 1 Super Bowl team. And for the Jets, I know when we had Nick on, shout out our guy, Nick Ryder, just to clarify, go listen to that. Like we said, was hopped on a couple weeks ago, but I revealed in the late night QB rankings that I did, a few nights prior to that recording, that I had Rodgers, I think it was 19th in my QB rankings. And that was just, it was some of the guys in the rankings. It was like, hey, let's just be like super optimistic with this guy and super pessimistic with this guy and kind of see how I was at Anthony Richardson too high as well too, is one of the guys I was thinking about being optimistic about. And, just kind of see what the status of the league looks like in this order. And that's also, IT, write that down as another segment idea. Late night player rankings, because like I said, it was, late at night, you're watching a movie, you're not really paying attention. Then you fall asleep, the phone's still on, you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, I had Aaron Rodgers at 19, that's way too low, and you just swipe off and you never change it. And then, you blurt it out in front of Sam's friends. But just a guy, the quarterback going into his 40s, like just because Brady was able to sustain the career for so long, and just because in general the quarterbacks have been able to play longer as well too, doesn't mean that I'm just super ready to accept that any quarterback is just like, oh yeah, well, let's just start saying that he can start playing into his 40s as well too, because like I'm saying, the bar has been raised for QB age for sure, but it's gone from like, oh yeah, by the time you're 35, you're probably going to be, oh, we should definitely be looking to your replacement, where now it's 35 to 40. Maybe you have a second life and there's a contract in there and you're a veteran on a team and a team's really trying to win now. And you can, really get a last few good productive years there as a quarterback, like we're seeing with, how old is Kirk Cousins right now? I think well, I was going to guess the man was 38, but he might be like 34 as well, too. But off the Achilles tear, he's 36. Whoa, just turned 36. Yesterday was Kirk Cousins' birthday. Happy birthday, Kirk Cousins. Happy belated birthday, I guess. Gosh darn it, Kirk Cousins, we got it a day late. That's not a Kirk Cousins voice, obviously, but I feel like Kirk Cousins definitely has somebody in his family with that voice that sent him that same happy birthday message in that tone. But just because the bar has been raised a little bit for the quarterback age doesn't just mean that 40 is now the new 30 for quarterbacks. And just because Brady did it as well too, but the Jets roster is just kind of too good. And I know the offensive line is not necessarily one of the best in the league, but I think from where it was at last year, to go out and get a couple of veterans and then to invest a little bit in the draft as well too, in that spot, I think it's to the point where it's serviceable. And with the quarterback that can make quick decisions, it can definitely get by a lot more. And, with Moses and Tyron Smith there, it's definitely going to be walking a tightrope in terms of health with those guys. But the defense as well, too, with just Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. I know we were saying it going into last year, but it's just going to be as long as those guys are foundational cornerstones on that piece. But now you've also got Quinnen Williams' brother, Quincy Wilson, was a first-team All-Pro linebacker last year, just another stud in the mix. Jermaine Johnson has taken a step forward. Really, he's kind of a guy that you just keep hearing his name mentioned as the camp stuff goes by. And I know, unfortunately, the Hassan Reddick stuff might not necessarily work out. He hasn't gotten traded yet either, right? I know, like we said, Judon got traded. Let's double check Hassan Reddick, what team he's on. And I know the Jets were saying as well, too, that they don't want to trade him, but you just, of course, if he's demanding and it's just not, the contract's not going to work out, what do you do? The Bears are the top name that continue to be floated out there pursuing him. But yeah, for now, he continues to remain on the Jets. So especially if Reddick is on this team, then that defense just continues to become overloaded. And oh yeah, now it's Garrett Wilson has a competent quarterback that can get him the ball. Breece Hall can get him the ball. And like I'm saying, Rodgers, of course, is a big step up from Zach Wilson. We get that. So just that level alone and the competency that the offense might have with the toughness that the defensive matchup is going to provide, it's just going to be a tough team to play every week. And I think with Breece Hall there too, he can be the receiving back if Rodgers needs him to be, but they can also grind out wins if they need to, like they've been doing over the last couple of years, but also have at least, a much higher IQ level quarterback than Zach Wilson over the last couple of years, even if I'm a little like wait and see anyways on some of the off-field stuff. And he's also first year off injury. Maybe for him early in the season too, it's a little bit of an adjustment. Played 4 snaps last year. And like I'm saying, also the Niners week 1, make no mistake, it's a tough matchup. But if they get out of that Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota run is definitely just very favorable in terms of quarterbacks that have to face that defense. Those are all matchups that they should win on that front. Let's double check and see if that Denver game is in Mile High, because maybe that makes it a little bit more different for Rodgers. And maybe that game is much tougher now. Bo Nix is looking like he might be a sleeper for Rookie of the Year, and his odds continue to rise, and they're only up to like 13-1 right now. So I know Caleb Williams has also looked pretty good, but well, shown moments, but Bo Nix has probably been the more efficient of the rookie quarterbacks, and I know he's scored on basically all of his drives at this point. So that game will be in New York. So I don't know, maybe Bo Nix tears his ACL on the field. We'll see what happens. But either way, extreme home field advantage for the Jets this year. But just all the opponent players are just gonna be injured going into that stadium as well too. So they won't have to struggle through the thin air at Mile High. They'll just have to deal with MetLife. But then at Minnesota, in Buffalo, I know Josh Allen, that team's with McDermott, is one of those, maybe it's just like a playoff team. That's, Utah Jazz-ish, like a Mitchell Gobert kind of vibe with that, in terms of a level with that Bills team right now. But with some of the turnover on defense and just the youth as well in the receiver position, I like some of their guys, but I could see it being a little bit of a turnover season for Buffalo, just kind of get things reorganized. I'm not saying Sean McDermott, if they don't make the playoffs, don't fire the man. But I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't happen. So maybe that's not necessarily a tough matchup. And then Pittsburgh, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson versus the Jets defense. And then they got, 2 New England matchups in the first 8 weeks. Could be 2 wins right there. And then they're going into that Houston in week 9. So if that puts them right on pace for that 8 weeks, kind of right in that range for when a team is usually the last unbeaten team in the league. Now, we have a lot of Houston stock. And unfortunately, I know Houston has one of the tougher schedules overall, but let's just double check here the start to the season. Is there a world where that is like an undefeated matchup? So Houston week 1 at Indianapolis. Don't shrug off Anthony Richardson going out there and upsetting CJ Stroud. Then they've got Caleb Williams, game 2 at home for Houston. So in Houston, Caleb Williams on the road in his second professional game. Then they go to Minnesota, Jacksonville, Buffalo, New England, Green Bay, Indy, and then the Jets in week 9. So 2 Colts matchup, that's a divisional game. I know the Colts fan, that too much Anthony Richardson stock. I get it. You might not take it seriously when I say the Colts are going to be competitive in those games, but we all get it. They're divisional games. The Colts and Texans are feisty matchups, and you get a Jags game in there. You never know. Like we're saying, the Bills, wouldn't be shocked, but you also never know too. The Packers, playing the Packers before the Jets, just in Green Bay at Lambeau, week 7, October 20th. Ooh, could be a little cold as well too. That's just another potential chance for them to get beat. So that could be like a battle of the unbeatens going into week 9. If we could get that at like 30 to 40 to 1, maybe we need to push it to like 45 to 50 to 1. We'd be a little more interested, but that could potentially be something to look out for. But our first might delete later take for the NFL season is the New York Jets are going to be the last unbeaten team in the league with Aaron Rodgers, with that defense. Another team to keep an eye out, though, like I was saying, Cincinnati, they do play Kansas City at Kansas City in week 2, so we might be bending our don't put Kansas City in the mix rule, but they've got New England in week 1, Washington in week 3, Carolina week 4, Baltimore week 5, New York Giants week 6. So, some tough matchups against KC and Baltimore, but if they get cooking early in the season, also Joe Burrow, his wrist is injured, I get it, but there's just a lot of favorable games there. And Chicago was in the mix for easy schedule teams. I do like Chicago this year. Keep that in mind. But they go Tennessee, like we're saying, Houston, Indy, and then LA as their first 4. So that Houston, Indy, LA stretch, Caleb Williams as a rookie, probably not going to start. Probably not going to start 8-0, but probably also not going to start 4-0 as well too. Though, week 1 versus Tennessee could definitely start 1-0. Wouldn't be shocked. But write it in pencil anyways. The Jets might be the last unbeaten team in the NFL, but another might delete later NFL take for this upcoming season. And I guess I don't know if this one's we should probably clarify if this one's for this upcoming season or for just in general. Maybe we'll think about it as we talk it out. But Justin Fields will be the best quarterback from the 2021 class. And like I'm saying, should we clarify, will he have the best season of a quarterback from this class, or will he be the best? Let's just go the best season, because the best career is too long. Hopefully all these guys have good, nice long careers. We want everybody to, prosper for as much as possible, but we'll say for this season, Justin Fields will have the best quarterback, will have the best season of any quarterback out of the 2021 class. So the obvious other candidate from that class is Trevor Lawrence. And I guess, if we're still betting on Trey Lance, do we think Trey Lance is going to get any minutes for the Cowboys? I guess, was Gardner Minshew in this class? I think he might have been. Oh, no, he wasn't. Fields. Mac Jones was in this class. And then will Kyle Trask take over for Baker Mayfield at some point in Tampa Bay? I don't know. But if, between Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, and you look at the first couple of Trevor Lawrence seasons now, and a Pro Bowl season in 2022, but also just a really incredible back half of the season, with the run that he had. 25 total touchdowns and then 8 picks that season. But the other 2 seasons, so his rookie seasons, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks. And then last year, 21 touchdowns, 14 picks. So I get the rookie season. Hopefully it's going to be the highest interception total that you ever throw in his career. You get a little bit of a pass too. It's your rookie season. You're working out. You're adjusting. You're going to make your mistakes. We all get it. But to follow that up, another double-digit season. So now that's 2 where he's almost 15 plus interceptions. There's just kind of a general efficiency thing there now with Trevor Lawrence, and 4,100 yards that season where he was a Pro Bowler, 4,000 yards this past season, kind of in that low 4,000 yard range as well too. And just some of the stuff that the Pittsburgh offense has been doing with Fields. And like I said, I still have a lot of Bears stock, but this will be a real test season for Eberflus to see where he's at with developing a young quarterback, because I don't think any of us would be shocked. It's Caleb Williams. You kind of got to do it. I guess, what level of good does Fields even have to get to be a guy where you have to pass on Caleb Williams at that point? Or, you get to trade the pick at that point too and get some assets. There's that part of it factors into it where you're getting a couple more pieces back. Maybe you're adding, a lineman here and a defensive piece there, and not just necessarily the quarterback for quarterback swap. But I guess we were asking those questions as well too over the course of the season. But I still think Justin Fields is talented, and we've also all really liked that Pittsburgh team. And you watch Kenny Pickett in the preseason as well too, and I think it's like, okay, yeah, they definitely needed to make an upgrade in that quarterback spot there. But the way Fields needs to be kind of ramped up as a passer almost benefits that offense a little bit too. And it's just, okay, let's get some easy throws on here where maybe they should have done, and Canada is probably a part of that too, in making the offensive coordinator change and just getting, hopefully an upgraded system in there and just a better philosophy. But some of the easy throws, just, hey, we're going to get the ball in Pickett's hands. We're going to get Justin Fields in rhythm. We're kind of just going to jumpstart the offense and get everything working smoothly. And now Fields is, later in the game, the stuff's breaking down. He's running around. He's doing all his athletic stuff. This Pittsburgh thing could be a really great situation for him. And, ultimately, what were they, an 8 or 9 win team last year? Maybe Pittsburgh is still, just in that one game above 500 range where Tomlin always seems to manages to end up. But I do feel like Fields is definitely going to start more games than Wilson at this point. I don't even think it's a hot take, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if Fields is starting week 1. I guess there is that we brought in Wilson as the veteran. Let's give him just kind of the one last shot and see how it goes mentality that they could run out there to start the season with. But just from the few flashes that I saw with Fields in the preseason, again, I'm not saying that the Steelers are like, oh, we need to consider him as a sleeper team in the AFC threat, but it was like, okay, maybe there is, there is actually probably something here with Fields, because there is also another path where it's like, okay, yeah, Wilson is the Band-Aid to this team. Band-Aid maybe is hopefully, do we want to put a little more respect on Russell Wilson than that? But, the bridge for us finding sort of our franchise guy. But I think there is also, or can be, some of that mentality with Fields as well, too, where he's just kind of like a bridge extender for like a couple of years. But again, not really, oh, he's the franchise guy. But he might be getting an inching to, oh, we could potentially be saying this guy might be the franchise guy by the time this season ends up. And, Trevor Lawrence just got paid this offseason, where I don't think we're going to be like Jacksonville needs to move on from him. But again, from what we were talking about with him last season, I was super hyped on him and had him in like that sleeper MVP type talk, which Sam was saying was like, hey, it's definitely a little aggressive. Wait a season for, if anything, this is going to be the year where it's like, oh, now the next year is the year where Trevor Lawrence is going to be in the mix for, he's going to get the Grammy snub this year, but if he drops another banger, then he's going to be right in the mix for that nomination the next time around. And I feel like now he's, if it's like, what is the path for Trevor Lawrence to win an MVP? I mean, yeah, if he's incredible this season, obviously, but if he's got to build that storyline, he definitely took a little bit of a step back last year and definitely made it a little bit more attainable for a guy like, Justin Fields to, in his age bracket, swoop in and kind of get his domain as another young quarterback you want to build a potential franchise around too. And just Fields' athleticism was really able to power that Bears offense in a way that I think is a little bit underrated, which is, I guess it's underrated if he's able to figure that passing thing out, then looking back and going, oh yeah, just the way he was, beating some teams just running around, where if you go back and look at some of the teams they beat, it's kind of like, okay, I kind of hope that Justin Fields is able to win some of these games if we have some stock in him. But they also did beat Detroit as well too, but a close loss to Detroit, beat Arizona, beat Atlanta at the end of the year, beat Minnesota with a bunch of injuries. And I don't believe Kirk Cousins was in that game at that point. So again, a couple of games that they definitely should have won there with Fields at the end too. But the way he hung around in those Detroit games, definitely, and just the way that his athleticism was able to give that defense, which that defense was playing well last year, was able to give that defense problems and almost carry him to win those games, was, again, a reason that we were saying that a team should still want to build around him as a franchise guy. So if Pittsburgh is able to have an actual upgraded offensive philosophy this year and give him a system where, RIP our guy Kenny Pickett run in Pittsburgh. I guess, the Pennsylvania part's not over. He's still in Philly. But in terms of his time in Pitt, maybe didn't necessarily end the best. But hopefully Fields can reap the benefits of an upgraded system there for Pittsburgh. But our might delete later take is, I guess, Trevor. He's going to be the best quarterback from the class. But I guess at this point, we're just saying that Justin Fields is going to have a better season than Trevor Lawrence last year, or this upcoming season. And I guess we hope he does too, because he's in the AFC South, and we need Justin Fields to one-up Trevor Lawrence, and hopefully Anthony Richardson swoops in and takes that spot as the number 2 guy at least, because we'll give Stroud his due credit for the incredible rookie season that he had. But Anthony Richardson, prove us right. Hopefully some of those early passes in that first preseason game, hopefully, we're just warming up. But speaking of the Bears, I almost wonder if the Bears are going to be better than the Packers this year. And I guess this is my delete later take, so we're just going to say it. The Bears will be better than the Packers this year. Take that, Packers fans. We got Bears stocks over your team. And I don't know if that's even is that just straight up quarterback for quarterback? We'd rather have Caleb Williams. And I know, like we're saying, maybe Bo Nix has been the best rookie quarterback out of this preseason. And Love just got paid. He's now with Lawrence amongst the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. But I was going through the teams as I was trying to, again, get kind of a lay of the land going into the NFL season. And I was just writing down guys from the teams that I was like, okay, I have to have this guy on my team. This guy's a dude. And it's, there's various levels of it. You got, like, if you're Sam's team, the Chiefs, you got Chris Jones is obviously a stud. He's the best defensive tackle in the league. But Karlaftis, was Karlaftis a Pro Bowler last year? Karlaftis might not be a Pro Bowler, but a double-digit sack guy, and felt like he got pressure at all the right times. Pause at last year. Yeah, no Pro Bowl, but again, just feels like a guy you need to have. McDuffie, another all-pro guy, just like a guy you need to have. So there's various levels to it. The Packers are a weird team with trying to figure that out, because on one hand, it's like, yeah, I actually kind of like a bunch of their guys, but I feel like you kind of have to put them in that other tier down from what I was just talking about, at least as of right now. Like I'm saying, I really love Dobbs. I love Watson. I love Lloyd, the running back they just drafted, and Dylan, everybody, myself included, can Dylan be more of a lead guy? And again, with bringing in Lloyd and Josh Jacobs as well, too. It's not like Dylan's going to have to do that, but no Aaron Jones there. I still would think that Josh Jacobs has a great chance to be productive in that Packers offense. And, Rashawn Gary on defense. Love Jair Alexander as well, too. Outside of Alexander and Love, I guess if we're just doing like the Pro Bowl thing, because Karlaftis, like we're saying, could definitely make the Pro Bowl next year. But if we're doing the Pro Bowl thing for the Packers, should we just do it real quick? Pause. Just pull up the starting lineup and see who we would guess. Love, obviously, we could see making a Pro Bowl. Jair Alexander, like we said, could make a Pro Bowl. Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark. But outside of that, again, it's more projecting up with some of the younger players. And Musgrave as well, too, the young tight end. I love a lot of the weapons that this Packers team has. But if you're like, which receiving core, just in terms of name value, has higher name value? You've got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze, or Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and Jaden Reed. And again, I love the Packers receiving core. I could totally see a world where that Packers receiving core has more yards, production, whatever, than the Bears receiving core. Outside of the fact that just, Caleb Williams is a rookie QB or whatever. Just on the terms of receiver talent, I'm not saying that the Packers receivers could be worse than the Bears. So yeah, I'm just saying, hey, the Bears receivers, in terms of name value, there's a little more pedigree there. Montez Sweat last year, I think, Jair Alexander, maybe the best defensive player between the two teams, but then you go Montez Sweat, then you go Jalen Johnson might, that's a close battle for cornerbacks between Jalen Johnson and Jair Alexander. We shouldn't just, immediately put Jair Alexander up top like that. Pause. But Tremaine Edmonds as well, too. For the Bears, there's just you start going down the list and start going guy to guy. Again, pause. For the Bears and the Packers roster, and the way the Bears stack up, Jaquan Brisker, we have a lot of stock in. They bring in Kevin Byard, who is, maybe took a little bit of a step back last year with Philly, but I still kind of like, and I think can be a great veteran presence in that Bears secondary. TJ Edwards, they stole him as well, too, and he had a great season for the Bears last year. The offensive line, I think, is really good. So I think if Caleb Williams, and again, early in the season, we get a rookie's going to have to make his adjustments, and we saw DJ Moore, yards after the catch creating last year with Justin Fields as well, too, as Justin Fields was continuing, his development as a passer. But again, you start doing the roster to roster comparison, and where everybody's kind of just locking in the Packers right now as the team in that spot. And again, that's Love. We saw him win a playoff game. We can't underrate that as well, too. But that Bears team is really, really close. And if Caleb Williams is just this generational guy, well, people were saying that this is the best situation, myself included. Like, this is at least one of the best situations that any rookie quarterback has ever had. At least the talent on the team year one around him. This is about as good of a supporting cast that at least, we're talking high draft pick, number one overall type quarterback pick has ever had. why would it make sense then that this team just couldn't be a playoff team right away? I think that's totally on the table for this Bears team. And if they're just all of a sudden that number 2 team in the NFC North, I would not be shocked at all. And I think the Lions this year are, yeah, I almost, as the more you predict football, like, I just almost don't want to lock in anybody to be a playoff team. But yeah, the Lions, if I was going to lock in NFC teams, it would be, the Lions would definitely be maybe the first one at this point to just lock. I mean, and maybe, as you know, we continue to project out all this stuff too, they might just straight up be my Super Bowl pick for the NFC this year. And the way they added the cornerback position, I mean, that defense looks great. But again, everybody's just slotting in the Packers as that number 2 team right now. And I would not be shocked at all if the Bears were that number 2 team in the NFC North and maybe a playoff team and maybe made the playoffs instead of the Packers. Now, maybe the NFC North has 3 playoff teams. That's definitely a possibility as well, too. But I'm just saying, don't be surprised if the Bears over the Packers is a potential timeline. But also, like we said, we might have to delete that one later if Caleb Williams is definitely a rookie quarterback and takes his time to develop a little bit. Pause. But do we have time for a couple more might delete later takes? I think we can sneak a couple more in here. I think I think we were definitely working more spicy to least spicy because we start getting more mights and maybes in these takes. But the Rams are going to be just fine without Aaron Donald this year on defense. Are we going to have to delete this one later? We might. But again, going through the Rams roster, I really like a lot of guys on the defense. And you read the reports about the rookies that they got this year in camp, and we're really going to be watching Verse closely this year because, you know, the Colts got Latu in the draft. And I mean, we're going to be watching any player that got drafted after Latu to see that hopefully the Colts made the right pick. But especially the defensive lineman to defensive lineman comparison, because that's a position that they need to invest it in. So, you know, you hope that they just nail the player in general, but you really hope that they were scouting that position group that they needed the most really correctly. I mean, like, for example, when they took Kwity Paye a couple years ago, and I think Gregory Rousseau and Jalen Phillips went after them. It's just like we're keeping an eye on both of those guys. And shout out Kwity Paye. I love having Kwity Paye. I'm not saying I would, you know, trade Kwity Paye for either of those guys, but yeah, I don't think I would do it. But I do really love having I like I said, I do want to at least keep an eye on those guys and hope that the Colts made the right pick. But Colts got Latu at 15. Minnesota got Dallas Turner at 16. I guess Seattle got Byron Murphy at 16, Dallas Turner at 17. Murphy also defensive lineman, more of a tackle. But again, defensive line, we'll keep an eye on him. And then Verse at 19 to the Rams. Chop Robinson at 21 to the Dolphins. And then Darius Robinson at 27 at the Cardinals. But I think even Chop Robinson was probably out of the mix there for the Colts at that spot. But yeah, definitely between Murphy, Verse, and Turner. And Turner looked good as well, too, with some of the snaps that I saw him playing. But all the reports about how Verse is playing in the camps, and also their second round pick, Fisk, Wilson Fisk? No, Braden Fisk out of Florida State. Did they just get the white Aaron Donald at this point? I don't know what ended up happening. They just slide in the replacement. But they also have, is it Bobby Brown? I don't know if I'm saying the right names here. And, you know, there could be a couple of Bobby Browns that I'm thinking of. But, yeah, Bobby Brown the third. And they also got Kobe Turner on the defensive line. Both of them had really good seasons last year. And Kobe Turner, another rookie, or a rookie last season, finished third in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting, had 9 sacks. I mean, playing next to Aaron Donald, make no mistake, with everybody blocking Aaron Donald, that's going to make you look a lot better. But the fact that they were able to at least get some more depth along that position, so it's not, you know, where some teams where you lose a guy and it's go, okay, we got the one defensive lineman. That's our replacement for now. At least we got a guy to fill in for that role. And hopefully he's really good, but we'll do stuff in later drafts and in free agency. We'll build that roster spot out in different ways. But they said, no, we need, and like we're saying, Aaron Donald accounts for a couple of guys on that defensive line just schematically when you're playing against him as an offense, when you're scheming up against him as an offense. And the fact that they literally went out and replaced him with multiple guys might actually have been a genius thing. And their defensive line with also Byron Young as well, too, as an edge rusher, who, again, I really love. Just a lot of really talented young players on the Rams defense. They signed Cameron Curl, a sleeper safety on the free agent market that I also really like. And I think if we're talking about quarterbacks that really benefited from the playoffs last year, I mean, Stafford benefited from winning a Super Bowl, obviously, but really benefited, again, just, validating that, again, guys at his age can still hang in the league as high-level quarterbacks, and he continues to do it. And if he's healthy this year, and with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Kyron Williams and everybody kind of fully healthy, I think that Rams team is right back in the mix to be a playoff team. And again, like we're saying, if the Niners are wavering at all this year, the NFC South or NFC West might be wide open. Not necessarily wide open, but there might be a little sliver. It might be a chance that they end up taking a shot at winning the division this year. Seattle has definitely made some upgrades. I just can't get behind their quarterback situation yet. Sam Howell, shout out our guy, but we actually would like to see him win a couple games before I start saying they're a playoff team. Maybe he's able to put up stats and keep them fantasy relevant if they have to pivot away from Geno. But again, for being a playoff team, we'll see how that goes. And Arizona, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison is definitely a fun combination, but the defense is probably going to take a beating this year. And again, if they won like 6 or 7, if they won 7 or 8 games and barely missed the playoffs, I think that'd be a win of a season. So if it came down to the Rams and 49ers again, maybe we're not necessarily getting different teams out of the NFC West this year, but I wouldn't be shocked if there was a different order in the NFC West. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Rams on top over the Niners. But, again, losing Aaron Donald, it's not that just he accounts for 2 guys. He accounts for like 2 amazing, awesome guys that are going to get to the quarterback, and he's going to get sacks and get pressure and actually be an impactful player. So, yeah, Fisk and Verse might be the law firm of Fisk, Brown, and Turner, Verse might actually be all good players, but can they equal the production of, Aaron Donald with those guys? Maybe not, but I just love that the way that they invested in replacing him and just in general, the investments that they made in the young players on that defense. And also going out and getting like Darius Williams for a cornerback was one of the better, above average, better cornerbacks in the league last year. Tre'Davious White's a veteran, played in a lot of games for the Bills, been in some big moments. So really got the defense up a notch. And again, just getting the offense healthy. I think we could even see the Rams take a step forward this year. Maybe just, being a little more consistent week to week, even though they were a playoff team last year. Should we just bring back at least another crazy spicy level one to finish this off? Because again, I think we've puttered off a little bit. I think, saying the Rams are going to be fine this year is maybe not the spiciest thing in the world. So to kick it back up a notch, we'll end on this one. I think the Panthers might win the division. And I think throwing might in there, just the fact that we're considering it, I think is spicy enough just to have Panthers stock at this point. But for one, the coach they brought in, Canellis, has like an actual track record of like working with some, and I have Bryce Young stock, but let's just say like working with some quarterbacks that have, needed, what's the term for houses? Like renovating quarterbacks. He's had some experience renovating some quarterbacks. He's worked with Geno Smith. When Geno first got to Seattle, Canellis was the offensive coordinator there. And then Baker Mayfield this last season in Tampa Bay just had the best season of his career as well, too, under Canellis. And again, like I said, I actually would give Bryce Young a shot. Like if I was in a position where, I was looking at Bryce Young as a team. No, I'm not saying that, at the draft, I would have drafted him number 1, but I'm just saying that if I was like, oh, I might need a quarterback and Bryce Young's available, I definitely, at least take a swing at him at this point. I still have Bryce Young stock, and I feel like going into year 2, it's still not crazy to have Bryce Young stock. And Bryce Young stock becomes different at this point. He's still a guy with upside. I think after year 3, things start going a little bit of a different direction. And again, I'll probably just always have Bryce Young stock and always, continue to hope that he's, I guess I don't know what the equivalent, win a playoff game, Pro Bowl, whatever the qualifying factor is to just be validated at Bryce Young's status as a quarterback in the league. But even if he doesn't even get to that level, like I said, I'm probably always going to continue to bet on him. So this is the last probably season where I can bet on him as like a young upside guy. Maybe year 3, it's close. We'll get a gauge of it, see how it goes going into year 3. But again, Derek Brown on defense, they've got some serviceable young defensive players. Serviceable is maybe not always the way to try to judge your playoff teams, but if J.C. Horn can stay healthy, between J.C. Horn and Derek Brown, it's a really strong 1-2 combination on defense. Shaq Thompson is still there. I think the offensive line is a little bit better than maybe people realize. It was really devastated by injury last year. I think they had 6 or 7 different tackle combinations. You bring in Jadeveon Clowney, another, above average pass rusher. It's like, okay, let's get an above average defense in here. Josie Jewell, I think we all, us Iowa people all really enjoy watching Josie Jewell in the NFL. Even though, for guys like me, we're not Hawkeye fans, we still appreciate him repping the state. Xavier Woods at safeties had a great run the last couple of years playing for the Cowboys. And I really like the Xavier Legette pick as well, too, for the receiver. Get in Deontay Johnson. Now, if we're putting them in the mix, their receiving core versus the Packers and the Bears, they might be pulling up third, but it's definitely a lot better than last season getting both of those guys. And I still really like Mingo, even though the connection might not have been there between him and Bryce Young, but the connection was there between him and Thielen. So we know that there's going to be some chemistry there. And again, a few more weapons. If Brooks can stay healthy, I think that's a real sleeper. Like, hey, this guy's going way too late in fantasy drafts for the first running back. We're always like, hey, the first running back off the board in the NFL draft is just worth investing in a little bit too high in fantasy usually. And Jonathan Brooks this year off the injury is maybe keep a little bit more of an eye on it. That's what we're saying. Jalen Wright was he number 2, or Corum might have been the number 2 back. Both, keep an eye on a bunch of the rookie running backs this year. But Brooks might just, immediately be starter and just might immediately be really good as well, too. And there's also maybe Bryce Young's not the guy world, and they just have to start handing the ball off because that's just the best offense that they've got at this point, which I'm not saying I believe at all. But also, like we're saying with the Falcons in our discussion of best record for last undefeated team, the Kirk Cousins, him returning off injury just gives me pause on that for me puts them in wait and see category, where I really like their defense, but I just need to wait and see with the quarterback position. And they invested in Penix. I'm not saying that they're not fine long term if they're able to bring in Penix and he's able to play right away. But again, having the rookie quarterback, maybe we just need to make the Caleb Williams case where, in a great situation, maybe they're right in the mix as a playoff team, and that's just maybe a little bit of a better situation than Bryce Young and the Panthers. But if there is a little bit of a hiccup in the transition, not in a hiccup necessarily, but if there is some growing pains or some learning curves, we'll say learning curves in the transition between Penix and Cousins, and even if it's just like, Cousins needs a few games to adjust to the system and get back healthy from injury, I wouldn't be surprised about that as well too. And the Bucks and the Saints, I don't know if I necessarily am buying up all the stock from either of those teams. For the Saints, I might just be saying, hey, are we going to see Spencer Rattler this year at this point? Will Spencer Rattler start more games than Derek Carr? Will the third quarterback that I can't remember his name, will he start more games than Spencer Rattler? It might be a mess in New Orleans this year. Who knows? But I don't know if I'm super high on Tampa either. So it would be, for me anyways, in the NFC South, just the floor of what Atlanta is versus the upside of what Carolina is And maybe the upside of Carolina is, if Atlanta is having some turmoil, some more turmoil this year, maybe Carolina is able to sneak through. And, win the division means they're a playoff team. That'd be a crazy turnaround from year 2. But somebody's got to make the crazy turnaround. Like we were saying earlier, I think just the Jets are a pretty easy candidate for that team. I mean, the Rodgers to Wilson upgrade. Maybe it's too easy, and we need to keep an eye on it. But also, the team in the NFC South jumping up and making a big leap. In this division, I feel like is not necessarily... Maybe this is like sneaky, not a hot take either, to say that there's going to be chaos in the NFC South. But I could see it being, either... At this point, it would be either the Panthers or the Falcons. And maybe, it's just the Falcons are the obvious choice. And maybe the Bucks as well, too, right back in the mix. I get it. Baker Mayfield, a lot of veterans, blah, blah, blah. But they also traded Carlton Davis. I don't really know what that's about either. They got the 3rd round pick back or whatever. I just think that makes the Lions a whole lot better. And again, the Bucks are trying to be a win now team by bringing all these guys back. So just when these teams that are like clearly kind of mid do those things, it's always just like, that might be a sign that this season's going to be a little weird for Tampa. So I don't know if I'm I think saying not investing in Tampa, maybe we've all of a sudden thrown water on the spicy take and we're not spicy anymore. But yeah, Carolina, don't be surprised if they're in the mix. Well, yeah, maybe do be surprised, but we'll see if we'll be deleting this one later if Carolina is in the mix for the NFC South title. This is why we snuck this one at the end. I think this is definitely a might delete later for sure. But come on, Bryce Young, prove me wrong. I believe in you, buddy. He's the only quarterback that I feel like we can call buddy and it's not offensive. But we still hope that the Carolina situation is able to have, be good this year. And like I'm saying, I hopefully have good faith that Canellis can get the best out of Bryce Young in that situation. But that will just about do it for this week's episode. A J. Cole inspired episode of Might Delete Later NFL Takes. I think we made it through pretty good without any technical difficulties. If you're watching the video, you saw us moving the background around earlier on accident. We'll try not to do that on the live streams, the watch parties, whatever we're going to do, we'll figure it out and we'll make it work. Just stay tuned to the Rem and Sam feed, the Rem and Sam podcast. Things are changing. Again, changing is, I don't want to say the right word. Things are upgrading. We're moving around. Things are getting better, hopefully. We're continuing to improve. So follow the feeds, stay locked in, stay loaded. Thank you guys for supporting and listening and staying with us up until this point. And hopefully we're able to continue to pay it off with some good, fun listens and watches for you guys later in the future. But like I said, this Friday, some NFL stuff, some Frisbee stuff. It's going to be fun. Some really other fun ideas we're cooking around as well, too. Because like I said, we got another kind of, low-key week in there before the NFL season really, before we get into week 1 and before things really get underway. We're going to have to cook up at least one other, crazy summer idea for you guys before we head into the sports season. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for listening up until this point, and I think that'll do it.